Hello everybody, welcome to our Language Training Center video classroom, and today we will learn new concept English Book 1, Lesson 84. Have you had? Sağlaştı yaxşımızlar. Bugünkü dərsinin təfsilatı diqqət qılsаңlar. Bugün asaslıqı hem şu hazırki бүткен zaman, hazırki tamamlanğan zaman, muşninki hem de şu ötken zaman bilen boğan, hem de addi hazırki zaman bilen boğan farkını bir mülayiz qılmaqçı hem de şunun da texin bir puxtlab ötmekçi. Andaq qarаңlar, bu yerdeki bir neçe açıqlıq söz var. Biz şu hazırki tutken zaman dedik, ötmüştü, ma'lum bir vaqt yüz bergen hem de belki hazırki davamlaşıp, hazırki ta'siri boğan zamanını biz hazırki tutken zaman degen toq. Bununla münasibetlik alda already, just degenler. Adətən müşdən olan billah keledi. Mesela bular qarab baxsaq, I have already had lunch. Okay, men allıburun tamaq yap oldum. Hem de bu degeniniz hem de bu yerdeki mening hazır qusqum toq. Hem de bir narsa yemeyme degenden derak berdi. Okay. Agar bu ötken zaman bolsa, I had lunch at 12 o'clock. Men 12 bilan tamaq yedim. Hazır bilan hech qanday munosabat yo'q. Faqat shu o'tmishda yuz bergan ma'lum bir ish harakatni ifodalaydi bu yerda. Hazır qusqum ashmi yoki to'qmi, ana hazırga nisbatan hech qanday bir natija qanday qilib beramaydi desang, epkilanmaydi. Demak, u o'tmish. Shunga shuningda sağdaşlar bir aniq bir konkret nima qo'yasiz? Mesela I have already had lunch, I have just had a cup, thank you. Okay, men abaylan bir staka ichib olgandim. I had already had my holiday this year. Men alburun bu dəminishimni o'tkazib bo'ldim degandek. Hamda o'tkazib bo'lsa ham qanaqa qilmaydi, hozir bo'lgan ta'sir o'tkazmaydi. Demak, hamda hozir mushunday ta'sir ko'rsatib keladi. Bu yerga ochiqlik so'zlardan already, just, already hamda mushariki muhim rollarni o'ynaydi. Andaqda bu oddiy demak hozirgi tutgan zamonninki buning savol shakli, buningki inkor shakli qanday yosildi? Masalan, bu jumlaga qarab baxsak, Jimmy has had a cup of tea. Okay. Endi bunun savol shakli qanday desanglar, bu shu have, has, done mı? Have, has ne? İginin oldiga chiqib etsak nima bo'ldi desanglar, savol shakliga aylandi. Masalan, has Jimmy had a cup of tea? Yoki mush have, hasning keyniga notni qatab etsak inkor bo'ladi. Jimmy hasn't had a cup of tea. Jimmy hasn't had a cup of tea. Degandek. Okay, number 2, they have had a good time. O nayte xushal xuram, nayte o'ynadi, shunama. And have they had a good time? They haven't had a good time. Ular qanday qildi? Xushal xuram o'ynamadi. Inkor mushu have-ninki oldiga chiqish yoki keyiniga nima qilish bilan munosabatda. Bu xuddi biz ilgari o'rganib o'tgan BP'li. BP'ni oldiga chiqib qo'ysak savolga aylandi. Onun lekin BP'ni keyiniga notni qaytib qo'ysak nima bo'ldi? Inkorga aylandi. Shunga asosan o'xshab qoladi. Okay, number 3, Tom has had a haircut. Okay, endi bu Tom chechini yasab bo'ldi. Endi Tom chechini yasabdimi? O'sha has Tom had a haircut? Tom hasn't had a haircut. Tom chechini yasabmadi. Demak, chechini yasabmadi degan gap texcha hozir buning chachlarini aytib usab ketdi. Zodi yastishga muhtoj holatda. Demakchi. Yastishga muhtoj holatda demakchi. Andaqda mush practice qilib baqayli. Bu misollar qaranglar. Have. Bu have-ninki hamda o'z navbati bilan shu nurg'un ma'nolarga. Masalan, I have already had one. Demak, yemak, ichmak, undan keyin chakmak, har xil konkret ismlarni oldiga kelsa, shuni bir fe'llashtirish bir xususiyatiga ega bir fe'l. Endi bu yerga mau have done shakilda have nima o'zgaraydi desanglar, had o'zgaraydi. Ayarga I have degan ayning keyini kelayotgani va grammatiklik qurilma u. Grammatikniki intayin bo'yin bo'lgan tarkibi qismi. Chunki hamda bu sendavanchingninki cümle şekilde elip aytganda avval igiz kelidi, igizden have has kelidi, have has'dan keyin nim kelidi desanlar done şekli. Demek fe'lning o'tgan, tutgan şekli. O'tgan, tutgan degandek, masalan, do degan qilmoq bo'lsa did qildi, done qilgan. Go bormoq, went, body, gone, borgan. Yoki ketgan degandek. And my king's milkcha. Okay, for example, I have already had some. Okay. Nima uchun oyada one miyagi some keldi deganda, sanog'i bo'lgan ism bo'lganda one ni qo'ymaymiz. Sanog'i bo'lmaygan ism olib kelganda cho'tsangiz some ni qo'yamiz. I have already had some. Okay, endi miyagi have nima cheese. Cheese ni sanog'i bo'lmaydi-ku. I have already had some. What about peach? Okay, I have already had one member ni yap bo'ldim. Demak, sanog'i bo'lganlarniki yap bo'ldim. Uni degancha beer. Okay, buni sanog'i bo'lmaydi. I have already had some. I have already had some. Okay. So example, have you had any fruit? Siz mevzu yedingizmi? Okay, yes I have. Well, agar yo'q yemedim bo'lsa, no I haven't. No I haven't. Demak, oddiy savol jumlaga javob berishmi qanday desanglar, o'xshamaydi miyada. Shu have'ning keyiniga notni qetib qo'ysak inkor bo'ldi. Have you had any fruit? Yes, I have. Have you had any fruit? No, I haven't. Okay, next one. Okay, have you had any vegetables? Okay, and this is sakyo'da deb baxtingizmi? Agar desa, yes, I have. Agar inkor qilmoqchi bo'lsangiz, masalan qaranglar, has she had any meat? No demoqchi bo'lsak, no keladi. Pash. Onun dikin ilgisi. Kim o aşağıdaki she şunama? She hasn't. Hasn't keyiniki. Hesapta not ne? Koyuk. No, she hasn't. No, she hasn't. Another one, you know, have they had any drinks? Okay, ula nima? Bir içimlik içtimi? Okay, yes, they have. İlgisi demek mi yerde? They can şunama? Yes, they have. Agar hamda has she had any tea? U azraq choy ichdimi desa, endi men yerga igisi he. Yo'q bo'lsa, no, he hasn't. No, he hasn't. Yo'q, u qanaqamidi? Ishmidi degan gap. So answer these questions. Example, have you had any vegetables or fruit? Nima qilib baqdim? Vegetable nima edimi desa, sakyo'da deydimi yoki mevchimi desa, o nima uchun mevchi yap tushunami? I have just had some fruit. Okay, I have just some fruit. Has he had any beans or peas? Okay, and men yerga peas deb tushunami? He has just had some peas. O azraq purchaq edi. Have you had any beer or wine? Okay, I have just had some wine. Men nima azraq wine deydi. Endi mana bu sharika fe'lning asl shakli, o'tgan zamon shakli, o'tgan zamon tarmoqqa, undan keyin o'tgan putgan shakli. Masalan, I do my homework every day. Bu odatda davomli takrorlanib turgan odat xarakterli harakatlarni tasvirlaganda biz oddiy hozirgi zamonni ishlatamiz. Masalan, I do my homework every day. Demak, bu topshiriqni burunmi ishlaydi, hozirmi ishlaydi, kelgusimi ishlaydi. Demak, hamda bu nihoyatda takror yuz beradigan hisobda bir harakatni ko'rsatadi. Undan keyin hamda bu o'tgan zaman ko'rsanglar, I did my homework yesterday. O'tgan ma'lum bir vaqtda yuz bergan harakat yoki mavjud bo'lib turgan holatlarni ifodalaydi. Masalan, I did my homework yesterday. Men turgan topshiriqni ishildim. Masalan, men shuncha desam, I have done my homework. Ishtagan. Agar inkor shakli, I haven't done my homework. Okay, masalan, have you done your homework? She hasn't done her homework. She has done her homework. She hasn't done her homework. Agar igisi uchinchi shaxs birlik bo'lib qolsa. Demak, hamda he, she, it yoki mushuni almashtirgan bo'lgan ismlar o'qib qolsa, bunga has keladi. Has keladi. Inkor shakliga notni shu hasn't bo'ladi. Has she done her homework? O topshiriqni ishildimi? Degandek. And then masalan have lunch. Masalan, I have lunch at 12 o'clock every day. Men her günü 12 günü tamam deyman. Demakki bu her günü shu sherkat qanday davomli yuz berib turdi. Agar endi o'tgan zaman bo'lib qolsa, I had lunch at 12 o'clock yesterday. Men tunugun 12 kundan tamam deydim. And I have had lunch. Yani birga diqqat qiladigan bir nuqtamiz, senda men uchunga aniq vaqt elishga bo'lmaydi. Undan qana aniq vaqt elishga bo'lmaydi. Faqat va faqat nima taxminiy vaqtni elishga bo'ldi. Masalan, since yesterday, yoki since 2 years ago, since 5 years time. No, 2005 degandek. Masalan, manchilik vaqtdan buyon degandekchi. Mushlarni nim qilgan gap. Okay, answer. Write the responses using some, one in examples. Okay. Masalan, have some coffee. Have some coffee. Okay, I've already had one. Men Allah burun birini ichib bo'lgan. Demak, endi bir stakan, nima stakanni sanog'ini bo'ladi. Have a banana. I've already had some. Men Allah burun qanday qilib bo'lgan, azroq yeb bo'lgan. Okay, I've already had some. No, banana nima? I've already had one bo'lish kerak, Xato o'qib tashlab. Masalan, have some beer bo'lsa, I have already had some. Va sanog'ini bo'lmaydiganqa mishaga some ishlatamiz. Men Allah burun qanday azroq nima ichib bo'lgan? Ichib bo'lgan. Okay, have an apple. Bir tal olmayapmiz. Men bir tal yeb bo'lgan emasmi? I've already had one. Okay. So have a peach. Of course, I have already had one. Okay, I have already had one. So next one is have some milk. Okay, I've already had some. Demek sanağını bulduğanga on, sanağını bulmayanga söylesem some. Mesela have a glass of water. Endi çıkmalı kayıp kaldı. Oy, water degeni sanağında olmaydı. Şuna some dep. Okay. I've already had demek some. Agar endi ma'u ma'noda ikki xil ehtimollar bor. Birga ma'u istakanni o'lchab qo'yganda nima dersanglar? Men bir stakan ichdim desak, I've already had one. Okay. Agar so'l o'lcham qilganim shar, I've already had some. Bo'ladi. Shuni shunday chiqib o'tadishlarni qaymoqda yurish. Okay, have a biscuit. Okay, I've already had one. Have some cheese. I've already had some. Men Allah bir nazrat qilgan egan. Okay, and the musharika, have you had any vegetables or fruit deganga? Mush bizdagi mashhur babam deb o'chim shekli. And mush ayni shiltib javob berdik ekamiz. Masalan, example qaranglar. I haven't had any vegetables. I've just had some fruit. Mush vegetable ne yemedim. Sek ya mevjuni yedim. So, has he had any beans or peas? Okay, he hasn't had any beans. He has just had some peas. Have they had any tea or coffee? Okay. They haven't had any tea. They have just had some coffee. They have just had some coffee. And the bulatman bu beşerikliğini ana inkar qilamiz. Odatda kitob olimida tirnoq echib beruvchi. Shu tirnoq echib berganda inkar qilsanglar bo'ladi. Masalan, have you had any apples or peach? Okay. I haven't had any apples. I've just had some peaches. Okay, my ko'plik yana bersanlar, some inkarni bersanlar, any keladi. So, has she had any beer or wine? Okay, she hasn't had any beer. She has just had some wine. Next. So, he hasn't had any lamb. And the one savol shakli qanday bo'lishi kerak? Has she had any beer or lamb or beef? Okay. Kingsa, have they had any tea or milk? Ular azroq choy ichamidu yoki sutmi? Ular sut ichmaydi. Masalan, choy ichmaydi desakchi. They haven't had any tea. They have just had milk. They have just had some milk. Okay, milk. So have you had any chicken or steak? So, I haven't had any chicken. I have just had some steak. I have just had some steak degandek. Bo'ldi. Bugungi darsimiz mana mushaylik bo'lsin, sog'lashlar. See you next time. Goodbye.